Welcome to the Unwashed Asses, episode 5, recorded. What day is this? It's Friday, right? Yeah, it's Friday. Friday, February 3rd, 2017. So, I wanted to get a quick thank you out to those that reached out to me after the train wreck that was last week's episode. One of the shitty things about me, or I get down very easily and frequently. My belief was that last week's episode I didn't want to do it. I effectively didn't want to record, but I knew that I had to. I forced myself into doing it and ended up putting out a subpar product for it. Kind of a similar situation yesterday where after recording Zero Lives, fell back into that little pit there, and I had a decision to make: either go ahead and record and get something similar to what we had last week, or put it off a few hours and see what I feel like. Now, my mood has improved a bit, but in the week's difference here, I learned a lot of very interesting things about myself. So buckle up. This one's going to be personal and awkward and all kinds of fun to delve with. But effectively, the consensus that I heard and the conclusion that I've come to is that I'm just an asshole. Now, there are a lot of different factors that come into me just being an asshole. Mostly, I'm rude, I'm selfish, I'm cold, and I'm overall, and I quote, grumpy. Now, what kind of triggered this was that I was getting the cues. It's something, I'd always joked about in the past, but I always tried to be a good person, effectively do the right thing, be there for people, be helpful and supportive. But my natural demeanor, apparently, is just to be a giant cunt. So I had a sneaking suspicion and began to kind of confirm a few things. First and foremost, I have a trainee at work who effectively would bitch nonstop about how grumpy I was, and that I eventually did warm up to him, but he was, hurt or disappointed. I don't know the exact feeling that effectively I'm not striving to make friends with him. And my rebuttal is, and usually is in these situations, I typically don't make friends with the people I work with. I can laugh and have a good time with you while we're working, but I typically don't exchange numbers, like personal phone numbers with you, or I won't ask you out for drinks after work, and don't really hang out. A lot of that is based on me being burned in the past and not really wanting to waste what little free time I do have. Not to say that these aren't good people and that I don't enjoy my time with them, but more often than not, these relationships, again, it's all my personal experience, and it probably goes this way because I'm an ass, they don't bear fruit. And what I mean by that is or at least I'm hampered by that maybe extended friendship. It makes things messy and muddy when it comes time to actually do work, because in some instances there's a power dynamic, like you're their supervisor or they're your supervisor at work, and you go out and try to be friends with them afterwards, and all of a sudden that division comes back into play at work, where you might get your feelings hurt a bit more easily as far as, well, I thought we were friends here. So I'll be friendly, but not to that extent. In addition, again, this was confirmed by both a trainee and another group of random individuals that I work with. When I first meet somebody, apparently I'm just a right-out dick. I'm cold, don't talk a whole lot, and I'm full of dirty looks. And I can't disagree with that. I'm not personable. Like, if it's customer facing, sure, I'll put on a smile and be happy-go-lucky and talk about whatever bullshit they want. But with my coworkers, I'm not necessarily that same way. And the same thing applies when actually trying to meet new friends, new potential partners, romantic interests, things like that. I make terrible first impressions. It's a matter of, I don't know about this person, so I'm trying to read them and figure out what's going on with them, so I keep quiet, keep to myself, and you can't do that in those situations, and so I come across as a dick. Now, all that being said, when I act this way, in any way that I've acted in the past, it's not a matter of me just wanting to outright be an asshole. I don't want to upset people, I don't want to be rude. Everything I do usually with a good reason. There's good intent, but as the saying goes, the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions, and that's something I've fully come to believe. Where in the past, we'll go back to my trainee for example here. I'm not joking with him in the first week. I'm not horsing around. I'm not sharing a lot of personal experience outside of how it directly applies to the job, because at that point it's my job to make sure he knows how to do his job. I'm working as an instructor, and my method of training is not necessarily like a drill instructor, but it's more clinical. I want to be very cool and calm and collected so I can effectively act as a fount of knowledge for them. I don't want there to be any personal inclinations or any opportunity for feelings to get hurt if they screw up something, because they will screw up things, and that's to be expected. It's my job to correct that and then give them the proper instruction on how to do that job. So the few interns, trainees that I've had over the years, it's always been kind of a similar reception where I'm just an ass at first, apparently, and it's because of the way I decide to interact with them. Now, that being said, I'd like to believe I have a very high success rate as far as my trainees are concerned when it comes time for them to actually perform. So I don't necessarily want to tinker with my formula for the sake of making them feel better emotionally, coddling them effectively, when I know that the way I do things works as far as making them good, productive employees. Because I can be buddy-buddy with you all I want, and we can talk about cards or sports or whatever the fuck you really want. But at the end of the day, if you can't do your job, that's on me. That's where I have failed you. And that's my good intention. The way I execute it, though, it's been universally kind of panned. So I can argue all I want about the results, but do the ends justify the means effectively? That I don't know. And taking a step back, largely what I can kind of pinpoint this change in behavior to a specific event, a very specific decision that I made at a very specific time in my life. Up until that point, I had always felt that most folks didn't care for me, and I blame that largely on my depression and my own self-image. That if I don't like myself, how could others like me? But I always tried to put others before me and do the right thing. After this event happened, my worldviews became more nihilistic in that I don't believe there's really a point to anything large scale, cosmically. I believe there's a point for me buying milk and eggs because I don't want to starve. There's definitely cause and correlation here, but the grand scheme, you and I are just specks of flesh sitting on a rock floating through the galaxy. I don't necessarily believe that there's any greater meaning to life. None of us have a greater purpose. It's all freak happenstance that we're here doing what we do. And that's a very dour, negative way to look at things. But I'm a very dour, negative person, and I don't try to impart that on other people. I don't try to force that belief system, because everybody has their different beliefs. They have their faith, their career, their family, their friends. Those are the things they work towards. Those are the things that make them happy. Those are the things that give them drive. For myself, My son is what gives me drive. I want to provide for him to give him the best possible life that he can have. And like any parent, there are sacrifices that have to happen with that. But if I can shield him from all the shit that I've gone through and had to put up with, and how awful the world is, effectively, the Santa Claus conundrum, how long do I keep him believing in a reality that doesn't exist just for the sake of his own happiness? And that, if for whatever reason I wasn't able to see my son, or, heaven forbid something happened to him, there would be effectively no point for me to do anything else in life. My own life as it stands right now would effectively come to a halt. And it is because of my behavior and the way I've interacted with others in the past. Recently I joked with a person I know, acquaintance, and I'm going to phrase it weirdly here, and you're going to find out in a second why, that we were playing World of Warcraft together, but not together. We were in a chat channel on Discord, and he was questing around with his wife, and they were talking about the possibility of having me run their characters through a low-level dungeon and effectively just farming it for them, helping them get a little level boost, complete some quests and whatnot. And she wasn't sure about queuing up for random dungeons because, as we all know, the world of online gaming is a very toxic one. People are assholes, like yours truly. And what happened was that I guess kind of the winning argument for me helping them out was, well, Christian's the same way. He doesn't like dealing with random assholes. He's just somebody that can run us through. And I said, oh yeah, I don't like playing with other people, and if I do play with somebody else, it would be with, I don't know, I have 3-ish friends. I don't even know if they would call me that. To which point it wasn't disputed on their end, and there was just a chuckle. And I'm past the point that things like that hurt because I'm cognizant of my behavior. I don't think they would ever call me a friend. Maybe at one point long time ago, but aside from these odd little encounters, I guess you'd say, over the internet where we have to deal with one another, or we just happen to bump into one another, it's like running into an old friend from high school. It's like, oh yeah, how you doing, buddy? Everything's great. What you been up to? Blah blah blah. Oh, we should get together sometime, and then nothing ever happens about it. Nothing goes further. And I don't know. I try, and I blame myself that it's. I think if I try to be sociable, I try to engage people, and then if I don't get what I deem as enough in my own mind, then I don't put any further effort into it, and I let it drop. And I can't do that because friendships. Relationships with partners, they take a lot of hard work, and I'm so selfish right now with my life that I'm not willing to put in the hard work. I'm not willing to risk getting myself hurt again. And this all comes back to that decision that I had made that had greatly upset and affected a number of lives, and continues to do so, and it will forever. Like I had said, up to that point, I had tried to do what I could for others and live my life for them. I wasn't a happy person then. I'm not a happy person now. But I shelved how I felt and would do just that. Oh, you need me to pick up something from the store. You need me to fix that for you. Just offering up help over and over again, and not really caring if I got taken advantage of because I was a people pleaser. And an opportunity presented itself to me where I could make myself very, very happy, but at a great cost. And I decided to pursue that happiness, and it had a large and wide ripple. A lot of things went to hell really, really fucking quickly with that decision. But I was happy, or so I thought. I still believe I was. That was the happiest I had ever been in my life. The problem with it, though, is that I was not mentally equipped for the fallout effect of the decision that I had made. And so, as those consequences caught up to me in a myriad of ways, my own mental health declined. There was only so much that I, could handle, and I effectively, because of my own inability to process and cope with these things, I destroyed that source of happiness that I had, and then brought on another form of despair within myself. And it's something I never really recovered from. To this day, I don't feel a whole lot of anything emotionally. I'm dead inside. There's bouts of happiness that happen outside of seeing my son and spending time with him, but for the most part, I'm still paddling up shit creek, but I've got both hands dipped in and I am stroking it as hard as I can. And I realize that I'm pushing myself further and further up this creek instead of trying to get to the shore and trying to fix things, because I'm at a point where I don't care about other people. I don't care what happens to them. I've lost my empathy. I've turned into a selfish prick. Like, if it doesn't benefit me, if I don't get something out of it, I don't care. And that's no way for a decent human being to live. That's no outlook for them to have. But I'm not changing it. I'm not taking the active steps. I no longer turn the other cheek, so to speak. Or if I get shit on, before I would take all kinds of god awful things happening to me and I would just let it slide. Now I become very confrontational very quickly. To the point where people think I'm quick to anger, and it's not necessarily anger. It's frustration and disappointment. And so when I get into a fight with somebody and they start sending me, 3-page long texts, it's exhausting, because I lack that empathy, I lack that interest. I may have feelings for the person and I may want to do what I can for them, but at the same point it's tiring, and I'm so done. 29 years of trying to make people happy, and I'm done. So I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to focus on myself and my needs. I'm not going to be particularly empathetic if you keep putting yourself in a bad situation and you spur my advice. And that was something else I had to realize, is that people don't want my advice. They don't want to hear what I have to say. And that's fine. That's totally fine. So I've become an asshole and a grump, and what really hammered the point home for me, aside from what my trainee had said about his limited experience with me, was I had asked a group of coworkers. I was going to ask for advice on a very specific situation, but I let it off with, "So guys, I need to know if I'm an asshole." And before I could finish the sentence, there were 3 people like, "Oh yeah, totally." And then they started relaying all their personal experiences when they had first met me and first had to work with me. And I wasn't looking for like an overall evaluation of my character. I wanted advice about a specific thing, but they just kind of like beat me to the punch, like, "Oh yeah, you're a total shithead. You're just the fucking worst." And there were laughs, and they explained, things, and I totally get it. I understand where they're coming from. And effectively it comes down to, I just make a terrible first impression. I have a really fucked up sense of humor, and I take getting used to. And if that person's not willing to put in the time, and if I'm not willing to put in the time and effort, then it's left at that. So it was funny, but it was eye-opening at the same time. And I don't know, I'm weirdly at peace with it. But the fucked up irony is that I want to do things like this show and, Friday Night Smite and Zero Lives and all other types of things where I'm engaging with people on social media platforms. I'm reaching out to the great wide world and say, here is my product. Judge me, enjoy it, be friends with me. And this weird, I definitely have like a Napoleon complex where I'm always overcompensating because I don't like who I am. And that is something I'm actively working on, which is a part of that selfishness where I can't expect people to like me if I don't like myself. And so I'm not willing to go out and do things or necessarily give you a good example here would be I had an Xbox friends list, dozens of people long, and it was always a thing of I'm jumping around and playing the games that they want to play instead of playing the games I want to play. And so it came to a point where in one of my valleys, one of my bouts of depression there, I culled the herd. I got rid of Facebook, I got rid of LinkedIn, I deleted a lot of people off of that friends list because if I'm not actively playing a game with you, if I'm not getting like some type of back and forth, if you're always just wanting to play one game and not necessarily come over and play my game, what is the point? Why am I friends with you on this? It's effectively a placeholder. It's a facade. It's bullshit. And so I got rid of a lot of people, and some of them got upset about this. And the funny thing was, when I got called out on it and, explained the situation, I said, okay, well, add me onto your friends list. We'll play a game together. Weeks later, only one person has come through on that, and we've actually played a game together. The others, they still sit there playing their games, or they're in that weird pseudo always offline bullshit, which is another topic for another day. But it just kind of validates my point as far as why should I bother? Just it's a transition point in my life where I'm at as far as I'm 40 minutes away from anybody that I would call an acquaintance or a friend. I work insanely long hours. And I live by myself. I need to focus on me and my projects and what I enjoy, because if I can't live by and with myself and be happy, there's no point in me pursuing a relationship and trying to fill that void with somebody else, because it's not that other person that can make me happy. It's up to myself to be happy with myself first. Funny enough, there have been a lot of podcasts talking lately about, relationships and how can you take care of another person if you can't take care of yourself. And that's the stage I'm at in my life right now, where if I get labeled an asshole because of my behaviors and my beliefs, then so be it. Because right now I'm trying to better myself, and I'm trying to do that in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to be very selfish. I'm not going to be very empathetic with your needs. Because right now, emotionally, mentally, I believe I am a train wreck of a human being. And I need to turn myself into an independent, fully functional adult who doesn't need another person to lean on, who doesn't need somebody else to pick them up constantly, when things are down. And so if I can kind of take the sabbatical from everything, if it takes months or years to do, well, the end result is going to be that I'm going to be a better person for it. That being said, I don't want to be an asshole. I don't want to be a dick to people. I'd never go out of my way to be a shithead. So I want to be a good person, but not at the expense of myself any longer. So that was cathartic. We're also going to talk about delivery drivers and Warcraft. So Yay for diversity, I guess. All right, so delivery drivers. I deliver food. I'm not going to name companies because I might get myself in trouble. But I do it on Thursdays from about 5 until 12 at night. And I mean, if you pay any attention to what I do, I'm a busybody. I like to keep busy. I don't sit still very well. So it gives me something to do, keeps me out of trouble, and gives me a little extra money in my pocket. So one thing I've noticed, though, and I've been meaning to address in an article or something similar to this, but I'm doing it now, is just the customer behavior when it comes to delivery drivers. It doesn't matter if you're having furniture delivered, if you're having food delivered, or you're getting a package. There are basic rules of etiquette that should be followed. One, to make the driver's job easier, and then two, to make sure your shit doesn't get fucked with. So, being a food delivery driver, it comes down to good examples of things that might go awry is there are regulars. Every place tracks orders as far as when you call in, your name gets entered into a database with your phone number, your past orders, your address, all of that information. On top of that, if you order on a regular basis and get the same stuff over and over again with the same drivers working, they quickly figure out who you are. Not in like a weird creepy stalker situation, but in alright, every Thursday night between 11 p.m. and midnight, I have the same 3 customers order very similar orders. It's without fail. I don't even have to put in their addresses with my GPS any longer. I just know who it is, I drive there and then deliver the food. Now, that being said, it's easy to figure out who tips well, doesn't tip at all, or tips mediocre, or who is just generally unpleasant to deal with. Now, before you start getting all upset with tip culture and whatnot, you have to come to terms. You have to accept that if you live in America, most of our food industry is based off of tips. Agree with it or not, that's the fact of the matter. And so, if you refuse to tip because of some hoity-toity belief that you hold, great, you made a point to absolutely nobody. The only person you hurt was the driver and then yourself. And odds are you have ended up in a list, be it a mental list that the driver now holds about you and then tells the other drivers about, or an actual physical fucking paper list of, here are all the people who shit on us. And I've heard of consequences with this where, maybe not the freshest ingredients are used, or they might not be so active in getting there on time. Like, say you have, say a driver has multiple deliveries to make, and they say, you have like 3 deliveries to make in one run. You may have ordered first, but all of a sudden you're now getting your food last. It's a shitty thing, but it's something that it never happens unless there's provocation. There's always a reason for things like this happening, and usually it comes down to just piss poor behavior or no tipping, just stiffing the driver. Now, I'm not justifying those actions. I'm simply stating facts. The way the structure works at the companies I've interacted with is that drivers are paid minimum wage on their regular hourly rate. Now, that only covers work that's done inside the store itself. There are ticketing systems in place that when a driver has to leave and they effectively punch out on the delivery, their pay rate goes down a couple dollars. So now they're making below minimum wage, similar to what a server would do in a restaurant. Now, some places will compensate the driver per delivery, like a buck or two. Others do not, and it's reliant on the driver actually earning a tip from the customer to offset the lack of effectively making the minimum wage. So they are dependent on those tips, especially when it comes to gas, because that's not something that's reimbursed. Now, sure, they can track their mileage, write it down, keep the receipts, and come tax time, have an accountant go through it all, and then you get a little kickback on it. But most of these are teenagers or people doing it, like in my instance, part-time for a little extra income. They might not always track those miles. And so if they have to drive 15 minutes out to your place and get stiffed, that's another 15 minutes back. That's a half-hour productivity where they could have been delivering, to maybe a lot of other people closer and getting tipped for it. The point I'm trying to make is that when you order a delivery, be it food, be it furniture, whatever, you are paying a convenience fee. Now, depending on the place, there might be that fee built into it, which is the delivery charge. But that's not money that ever goes directly to the driver. It is always a separate charge that goes directly to the company itself. And so that's something I don't know that a lot of people realize, and if they do realize it, it's something they should care about. Because I notoriously order food for delivery a lot more when the weather is catastrophically bad, because I don't want to go out when it's bitterly cold. I don't necessarily want to go out when I've been working outside in the rain all day, or say it's snowing really awful and I don't have much in the way of food at the house. So I will call up and place an order for delivery because it's convenient. I know that within an hour I'm going to have piping hot food that I know is of good quality delivered directly to me, and I don't have to worry about it. As such, I tip very generously in that regard. I did so before I delivered food and will continue to do so because I subjugated another human being to something that I didn't want to put myself through. And so I'm going to compensate them for that. I don't care how far away. You could be just down, 3 blocks, or you could be 15 minutes away. I'm going to make sure you're appropriately rewarded for those actions. And a lot of people say, well, they're just doing their job. Again, though, because of those pay structures in place, they are reliant on that tip. So they are doing their job, but you also have to hold up your end of the bargain. And so it gets infuriating when, say, you have a regular customer, that if they place an order that you're going to get shit on as far as tip. Case in point, there was a customer who would regularly request special things with their delivery. And the company and employees being as good as they are, they would always oblige, but the driver themselves would always get shit on. So special order fulfilled request, drive it out there, and say the total would be like $19.80. Customer would hand the driver a 20 and say, keep the change. Which at that point is just a slap in the fucking face. Because you can't buy anything for 20 cents any longer. It doesn't even cover the gas that it took to get out there and deliver that food. It's just a shit thing to do, especially if you keep putting in special requests with each delivery and then fucking the driver over. And so the tipping is just one part of it. It's granted a very large part of it, but if you're not tipping, the fuck, man, that's just wrong. And it's ignorant. It's rude. Don't be like Christian. Tip. Don't be an asshole. So there are standards for what I believe as far as what an appropriate tip is. Anything less than $2 is just outright outrageous. 3 is a good average. Typically, I'd say it's dependent on the weather and how far the driver has to go to get to you. 5, nobody's ever going to complain about that. Anything over, 3 is just it's icing on the sundae or icing on the cake. So 3 bare minimum. And what's $3? You pay more for a coffee in the morning So pay that convenience fee and don't end up on a shit list, essentially. But the couple things that drive me nuts are, one, if it's night out, have your fucking porch light on. It's hard enough to see at night without having to try and fight to see your house number. So if your porch light's on, it's an easy identifier, because usually the GPS isn't going to point us at the exact location of where you live. It's going to get us close. And it's at that point that we start scanning around and checking for house numbers to figure out which side of the street you're on, and then, which house exactly it is yours. And some companies even have a policy that if house light's not on, don't deliver. Don't even get out of the car. Now, I don't know a whole lot of drivers that actually abide by that, because peer pressure, you get yelled at, or the customer calls and complains, and nobody wins overall. But it doesn't take but a second. Turn your porch light on. It is so much easier being able to see that light and know that's exactly where I gotta go. Going in line with that is have a visible fucking house number on your goddamn house. The only reason that would be unforgivable if it's like a brand new construction, you guys are literally still moving in, and you haven't had time to put the house number up yet, but have bold, clear house number. Don't put cursive up on there. Don't have it in dark letters and numbers against a dark background, like say you have a wood or a dark brick house. Put it right up front. Big numbers, big letters. Put it on your fucking mailbox as well. The only deliveries I actually enjoy going out on are the ones that take me out into the country, because we have the fire station address markers, where they're the reflective material stuck right in the front of the yard. I can find the number easy. I know exactly where I'm at. I'm good. But anything in town just becomes an absolute pain in the ass if the person doesn't actually, one, maintain their house, or two, just got really fucking stupid with the font and color choice for their house numbers. Or B, they just don't have one at all. So, light on, house number visible. 2, or 3, I should say, make sure your doorbell works. And don't get upset at the driver if they've been standing out there for a while and had to pound on your door before you finally figured out that they were there. I'm shocked at, just good example, 25% of the doorbells I ring don't work. And it's not like they're battery powered, they're wired into the rest of the house. But if you're going to have a doorbell, if you see that it's cracked or it's not, working, once a week, just test, make sure it works. Because standard protocol now has become for me where I've effectively got to take a cup with me, hold it up to the door, ring the doorbell. Did it ring? Did it ring? Is it moving? No? Okay, give it 30 seconds, then we'll knock. And by knock, I mean I'm going to hammer on your fucking door, because I got to make sure you heard me. And usually only then do I get the indicator of the dogs going nuts and barking like, oh, yeah, delivery driver's here. So, lights on, visible house numbers, make sure your doorbell works. 4, if you live kind of in the boonies, or delivery drivers have a hard time finding your place, either if it's a new construction or GPS hasn't been really updated to cover your area yet, please put concise instructions on the order itself. If you're doing an online order, easy to do. If you're not sure, you can always call in. Anybody can edit the order and put in the necessary instructions, or relay the information to the driver themselves. Because I've had that a few times where it's a new construction, or the GPS for whatever reason freaks out and takes you in the complete opposite direction. And this is something that can be easily avoided. I lived in one of those places myself where I would get drivers calling up and saying, I don't know where your house is. Where are you at? And I'd say, well, where are you at? They'd tell me. I'd say, no, you're on the opposite side of town. Come this way, because GPS screwed up. And as soon as I would realize that, I'd put that necessary information in. And you know what? I never had a problem again. You get your food quicker. It's a lot less hassle for the driver. It means they're a lot less pissed off. And then nothing goes wrong. Which is funny, because it sounds like a hostage situation with the food and the money, as far as give me the food, I'll give you the money, and everybody walks away from this just fine. But if there's tensions beforehand, the negotiations start to break down. the last thing here, and unless I think it's something else, is don't be a dick. A lot of drivers, they're teenagers. They don't have worldly experience, or they're schmucks like me who are just doing it to make an extra buck. Don't be a dick. If you've had a bad experience with the store in the past, that's with the store. Don't take it out on the person themselves. I have one example where I was delivering and the customer just immediately started screaming at me when they opened the door, because my policy is you don't get the food unless I get the money, because if I give you the food and you just slam the door in my face, I get stiffed. And some companies have policy where that can only happen once or twice, and then the driver has to start paying for it. So I'm not willing to take that risk. And customer begins screaming at me to hand them the food first. I don't play that game. And ultimately, I was ready to walk away with the food until they decided to go ahead and hand the cash over. And I don't want to be a dick. I understand if your food has an order inaccuracy, I will stand around and let you check, make sure everything's perfect. Because if not, then that's bad on us, and we're going to make up for it. But again, it's like a hostage exchange. It's stupid. Don't be an asshole, because you are typically at most like a 15-minute problem for the driver. They just need to get your food, make sure the order is accurate, get it out to you, get the money, and get back. After that, you no longer exist to that person. But if you're going to be a shithead, guarantee that information is going to get passed around that store real quick, and all of a sudden your service is really going to start to go downhill. I'm trying to think. There are a lot of stories I could tell, but I don't necessarily want to, because one, I'm still employed. I'd like to keep my employment, and two, it's going to get off into a tangent that I don't necessarily want to get to. But it's all real simple, easy things to do, to take care of. So do just that. Be a decent human being. Make sure your light's on, your doorbell's working, your house numbers are visible, and don't be an asshole. And everybody, they get along. It's something that drives me nuts. And then I guess lastly is don't stiff your fucking driver. Even if it's $1, it helps way more than being an asshole who says, "Oh, we'll keep the 13 cents and change." Just a reminder that the Unwashed Asses is brought to you by me. I don't believe in doing ads because, one, the ad models are fucked and they pay out next to nothing, and two, I myself don't like ads. So I have just recently decided that, we're going to get rid of ads across the board on the site. No more ads in the YouTube archive videos, and really nowhere else. That being said, if you're an advertiser and would like me to pimp your product, get in touch. I need money so I can pay bills. But no, if you do like anything that I put out, be it the Unwashed Asses, Zero Lives, the Games with Gold, Friday Night Smites, or Emily Says Boo, any of it, head over to patreon.com/0and09 and toss me $1 or $2 a month, whatever you feel comfortable with, because every little bit helps. And as I'm branching out here, this shit gets expensive real fast. And I won't stop doing it. I'm never going to take the shows away if I don't hit like certain thresholds or anything like that, because I like doing it. But having to not worry about the expense would be a huge relief. And then if we do hit certain goals and thresholds, then I can make the shows even better. So help me help you, help me. And yeah, head over to patreon.com/0and09. And of course, if you want to rate the show about anything I've talked about, or just shoot the shit about whatever you want, theunwashedasses@gmail.com. Again, the unwashedasses@gmail.com. Write whatever you want. I'll read it on the show. If you want to talk about, me being an asshole, your interactions with other assholes, or your own personal beliefs about delivery drivers, drop a line. We'll read it. We'll talk. We'll have a delayed two-way conversation, and we can see what the thoughts of the audience are here. So it's a little bit of a grab bag as far as the third section here and what I wanted to talk about. My plan was to initially, delve a little deep into World of Warcraft, my addiction there, and how it's ruined relationships and other impacts it's had in my life. And then I realized there were a few other things I wanted to talk about. So this was going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge. I wanted to touch on something that happened yesterday while recording Zero Lives. I was doing a playthrough of Dark Souls and had happened across another player in the game, summoned them because I don't know what the fuck's going on in Dark Souls, so I'm just hitting buttons. Ended up summoning another guy into my game who started messaging me over Xbox chat. Now, there were bits of that in the video itself, and then after I turned the stream off, I kept playing with this fella. And this kind of ties back into my initial thing of, Christian's an asshole. He had been apparently playing Dark Souls since it first came out, nothing but vast amounts of experience, and was bragging quite a bit about his own abilities. That being said, he was extremely helpful to me as far as guiding me where I needed to go, killing a whole lot of stuff, giving me a shit ton of really good stuff, and just overall advice. Now, that all being said, I felt kind of dickish in that I was silently complaining in my head about the experience, because apparently Dark Souls had a bug with the Xbox 360 version of the game that you couldn't join a party chat and then play the game together. As far as summoning it would put you in an offline mode. This was supposedly resolved with the Xbox One version of the game, which was then backwards compatible. So he would invite me to a chat, which was different from the party system. It was something I'd never done before. And the problem was, apparently he didn't want me hearing him breathe into the microphone, so he was talking away from it. And I couldn't hear him. It was very hard to make out what he was saying. And I was getting aggravated by this because I effectively had to turn all the game volume completely down just to hear what he was saying, and even then it was very, very faint. And so it made it difficult, it made it frustrating, I was annoyed, and I felt bad about getting upset about it because this guy was going out of his way just to help a new player, and I shouldn't be upset. I should just take what I could get and be thankful for it. And I feel bad about that. I didn't complain to him, but I'm complaining now, and it's one of those things, I shouldn't feel this way, but I do. So, I'm sorry, guy from yesterday, for being an ass, at least inside my own head, and not really verbalizing anything. That was the other thing, too, with the party, the chat that wasn't in a party. He couldn't hear me. And so I had the Xbox app open on my computer, and I'm typing replies to him as he's saying things to me, and then I imagine he has to open up the message on his 360 and read it through that, and it was a very awkward experience overall. But it definitely made the Dark Souls run through a little easier, and I didn't beat it, but I believe I'm in very good shape to go ahead and clear the game out, because with all the stuff he gave me, I jumped from level 1 to level 40 in the span of 2 hours, which is just absurd. So, there's that. Kind of getting back to what I wanted to talk to about, though, with World of Warcraft was, one of my acquaintances, friends, I don't know what, had recently resubscribed to the game. And anytime somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'm playing World of Warcraft," I get that little itch in my head, "Oh, I should resubscribe to Warcraft. I should start playing again. I miss the world. I miss doing the quests. I miss X, Y, and Z things about it, and maybe I could play with this person." And I get the itch. It's like I gotta play, but then I realize it's an extra $15 a month and a lot of time that I don't have to invest in something that I could be investing my time into more productive things. Because there was a point that Warcraft had just completely dominated my life. It was all I would, eat, sleep, and breathe. I would dream about the game, and I would shun relationships to play the game, and I was a very shitty, terrible person when I played. I was addicted. And it's something I've been playing since vanilla, easily since like 2004. And so I've been playing this game for a very, very, very long time. And it's always had a hold in my life in one way or the other. I play a lot of other Blizzard's games because they always deliver top-notch products. I have the Warcraft art books. I have the movie. I have the soundtracks. I'm fully invested into this. And so it was a thing that I had been, they've been playing for a couple of weeks, and I kept putting it off. Like, I don't need to go back. Just fight it. This will pass. You get past it. You don't have to ever play again. And then I was listening to The Instance, and they had just posted one of their lore episodes. And I mean, the storytelling in Warcraft is shoddy at best, but their lore is rock solid. I like what they're doing with it. And so when The Instance covers the lore and breaks things down, it strikes that storytelling bone, the part of me that really likes a good story. It's like, shit, I should play this so I can experience the story again. And then my pseudo friend was talking about it, and I got home and I didn't have anything to do aside from cleaning the house. So I'm like, let's put on the Warcraft movie. It was a giant steaming pile of shit, but I'm in the mood, and so I put that on, and then I don't even think the movie had finished, and I subscribed. I lapsed, and I for reasons I won't go into, it brought back a lot of really painful memories. And then I started to play, and I realized that my laptop, again, regular listeners are going to know, my laptop, albeit having really good specs without the dedicated GPU, it doesn't necessarily like games, even ones that run on toasters like Warcraft. And the biggest issue I was running into is that every couple of seconds, I think whenever the game had to load in more assets, the video would freeze up and I would get a terrible stutter of the audio. It was effectively making the game unplayable. I'm like, well, shit. I just spent $15 on a game I can't play. And the problem was because of the upgrade to Windows 10, the driver support got a little funky. So thus, I brought more work upon myself to get the game stable as far as like downloading drivers, changing different registry entries, and tinkering with my system more than I typically like to. But it ultimately resolved the issue. It forced me to confront a problem that I had just been pushing off, which I guess was good. But then it also enabled me to waste time on something that I don't need to be wasting time on. And so I put up on Twitter like, oh shit, I just really fucked up my production schedule, because I very easily get backlogged because I would say, well, I'm ambitious. I create a lot of projects for myself because I want to be a productive human being. Well, the thing is, I usually just make too much work that more than I can handle. And then throwing in the crack fiend like addiction of Warcraft and the time sink that it is not good. And I've been good. I haven't played it for a couple days, as far as I had other things to do, things like recording shows or taking care of other business, and it was good of me not to do those, not to ignore those tasks, but instead to go ahead and do what I had to do, instead of logging into WoW and then all of a sudden 8 hours are gone. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I would like to play. I did have a max level Shadow Priest, and I went back to my Holy Pally, so I'm going through with him and healing the dungeons and whatnot, and it's fun. I was really nervous about getting back into that because I haven't really healed or even played that character for a couple years now. Not since Draenor. I was running heroics, and I was nervous. Like, okay, well, I hit 102 with this guy now, and I've got my artifact weapon, and I'm fairly competent as far as like what my new talents are, because they completely overhauled that system with Legion. So let's go ahead. We'll queue up, and it went a lot better than I thought it would. I didn't have any real performance issues with myself, despite the tank being an absolute waste of a human life. I kid. He liked to rush and pull a lot of stuff, and was stupid, and the group didn't like him. But no, otherwise it went well, and I'm enjoying my time. But again, finding myself kind of playing alone, which is why I usually cancel the game, because if I don't have people to play with, then it's no fun. I don't know. As we've uncovered through the duration of this episode, there are a lot of reasons why Christian plays games alone, mostly because he's an ass. But no, don't do that, Christian. Don't offer an open invitation to play with random strangers, because that never goes well. Sorry, there, I had to wet the whistle. I think really that's gonna wrap it up here. I covered a lot of what I wanted to. Again, if there's anything that you feel pops up, or anything you want to talk about, the unwatchedasses at gmail.com. I'll read it, and we'll talk it over. You could just bitch and vent, or we could have a meaningful, heartfelt, deep conversation between two human beings. But otherwise, as always, you can find the show on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Pocket Casts. I also throw up a static video link on YouTube, so you can even watch it there. And SoundCloud, of course. So, I mean, you think of it, you can get the show. But if I'm missing your platform, or you want it somewhere specific, let me know, and I will work to get it there. Otherwise, we'll be back next Thursday. Hopefully, I don't get a bout of the sadness, and can put together a good show after we finish recording Zero Lives. Up next, we have Friday Night Smite with myself, Mezzafesto, and Sapper Woody at 9 p.m. Central Time on Friday. This will be for February 3rd. So, good show tonight. We should have a lot of good stuff, at least as far as what I put into the show notes. So, if I don't see you then, we'll see you next week.
I can feel the end, it's drawing near. It will soon be here. Oh, that much is clear. So shut the doors and turn off the lights. Let us sleep tonight. Let us huddle in the dark. Oh, my lover, you are beautiful, but that beauty comes at such a price. And I know that you'll soon disappear, like the dark and the night.